Again, I would like to say thank you for all those views on the last Batman video. Really enjoyed making it anyway. Here's the next episode.
The episode starts normally with Yvonne Francis getting kidnapped by a man with a distorted face after her date with Bruce Wayne. The next scene opens with Detective Montoya questioning Bruce Wayne about every detail of the night. Bruce, meanwhile, makes it clear that he has no idea what happened to her. Little does Montoya know, Bruce plans to look into this as Batman. The difference is that Lucius Fox is still introduced not just as Bruce Wayne's lawyer, he's also an inventor. Bruce still bugs Montoya. This will be important later. Next up, it is revealed that Yvonne isn't the first actor to go missing this month. Many others have gone missing, including a man called Basil Carlo, but no one seemed to care that he went missing, as he played the villain in every movie. He was considered ugly by most of his co-workers. Basil Carlo was an abrasive person at times, but he attempted to care for others. Only all of those attempts were read as personal attacks due to his sharp tongue. We cut to a dark room with a ventriloquist and Scarface talking to Roland Daggett and a third figure covered in shadow talking about their big scheme. The ventriloquist is still his usual meek self, afraid of what these three men are planning. Scarface turns to the shadowy figure and says, "Well, pal, we pulled the wool of those chumps' eyes. They suspect nothing." And he laughs manically. Roland Daggett pours himself a glass of whiskey and softly says, "Why would they, my wooden friend? All they care about is the missing movie stars. They are too concerned with their favorite actors going missing to notice any sort of pattern." And he takes a sip of his drink. The man in the shadows softly says, "Oh, but it would be fun to watch them try." The ventriloquist can't even get a word in. Meanwhile, in Detective Montoya's office, she's trying to find any sort of clues on who could be the next victim. Arnold Flass and Harvey Bullock come in to taunt Montoya. Flass is more mean-spirited than Bullock. He says, "Hey Montoya, struggling along are you?" And Montoya says, "Shut up, Flass." Bullock says, "Just blame somebody random. You're a cop, you can do that." Montoya yells, "Get out. I need to focus." And Flass says, "Maybe you should just quit law enforcement and become a baker instead." Montoya considers throwing a punch at Flass, but she knows that violence won't solve this situation. It is likely to make it worse. Montoya cannot take both Flass and Bullock in a fight. They are much bigger and stronger than her. She leaves the room to calm down for a bit. When she comes back, she sees Batman standing there. She instinctively pulls out her gun and tells him to freeze, but Batman just shushes her and says there's a connection between the missing people, and throws a poster for a movie called The Night of Clayface. He continues, "Take a look at the list of actors in this movie. I'm already looking into one of them." And he grapples out the window. Montoya looks it up and realizes that Batman is right. All of the missing people were in The Night of Clayface, meaning that one of the actors in the movie could be behind it. She rushes to one of the three remaining members of the cast, a lady named Summer Gleason. Montoya kicks the door down and yells, "Police, open up," causing Summer to jump up in surprise. Montoya questions Summer about her relationships with her co-stars. Summer mentions that she had a close friendship with Yvonne. It may even suggest that she had a bit of a crush on Yvonne, and mentions how Basil Carlo tried to be friendly, she thinks, mentioning that Carlo was hard to read despite being so blunt and closed off. Suddenly, there's a knocking at the window. Summer looks at the window and screams as she sees a man with yellow eyes, long black hair, and a disfigured clay-like face at the window. Montoya pulls out a gun at the sight of the man, but the man breaks the glass with an old-timey sword, laughing like a madman. Summer screams, "It's Clayface, run." Montoya tries to shoot Clayface, but his reflexes are too quick for her. He backhands the gun out of her hand and says, "Didn't your mother ever teach you how to play nice?" Summer tries to crawl away crying, but Clayface grabs her and says, "Now, normally I would just stab you here and now, but I think it would be way more fun to have you watch." Laughing like a psycho, Batman suddenly swings in, kicking Clayface in the face. Clayface tries to fight Batman, but he's no match for the Dark Knight. Clayface, beaten and bruised, says, "You win this time, Batman, but I'll be back." Summer runs away, tears streaming down her face. After all, she knew that this crazed psycho was after her. Clayface had barely escaped, but he had made it back to Daggett, Incorporated. Scarface is disappointed that Clayface didn't bring the girl. Clayface says, "It wasn't my fault, boss." Batman showed up. The ventriloquist says, "The Batman you say?" Oh dear, Mr. Scarface. Maybe we should abort this mission? Scarface slaps the ventriloquist and yells, "Shut up, dummy. We're in too deep to quit now." Roland Daggett softly says, "Calm down. There's an easy fix for this. You've only had a small taste of the formula that turned you into what you are now. Of course, it failed to give you your dream face and that leading role you wanted, but enough of it could give you enough power to even take Batman on." Clayface smirks and says, "I'll do it." Clayface takes a heavy dose of the formula, his body warping in new ways. Scarface says, "Bring me that ransom or else you're cooked, kid." Clayface says, "I won't let you down." Clayface now has the power to manipulate his body in an almost clay-like fashion. He can shapeshift for short amounts of time, create weapons from his arms, and slime his way into closed-off areas. Montoya meets up with the director of the movie, the Knight of Clayface, and asks him about Basil Carlo. The director says, "That guy was ugly, abrasive, worthless, and expendable. The only good thing that I had to say about him is that he was cheap and good at being the villain. I also made millions from that movie, and I didn't give those actors a cent." Clay forms in the sink behind the director, revealing Clayface, who stabs the director in the chest. Clayface turns himself back into Basil Carlo and says, "That's all I needed to hear." Montoya panics and tries to shoot Carlo in the chest, but he turns back into Clayface and says, "There's no need to be so naughty, detective." Clayface throws the corpse of the director in the fireplace and lights it. Montoya yells, "I'm going to tell everyone what you've been doing, Carlo." Clayface says, "So what? These people deserve to die. The world is better off without these backstabbers. Yvonne and Summer will get a chance to survive if they agree to my terms. They didn't deserve to be backstabbed, so I'll give them a chance to survive. So just try and stop me, detective." And he goes through the vent. Montoya knows that she needs to get to Summer's house and fast. She races there, Batman of course following from a distance. Montoya arrives at Summer's house and tells her to lock the doors because Clayface is on the loose, causing Summer to panic. Montoya does her best to calm Summer down, telling her that Basil Carlo is Clayface and that he's more powerful than ever. Suddenly, Summer morphs into Clayface, punches Montoya, and knocks her out. Batman arrives at the scene afterward and checks the security cameras through the footage. He learns that Basil Carlo is Clayface, Montoya, and likely Summer have been captured, and maybe even where old Carlo may be keeping his victims. Batman remembers a product that Roland Daggett had that could turn anything into an almost moldable clay-like substance, which Daggett claimed was used to help with construction, but there was likely more to it than that. By this logic, it was likely that Basil Carlo was hiding at one of Daggett's chemical factories. Montoya wakes up at the factory to Clayface's face. Montoya notices Yvonne and Summer tied up together in the same chair, just wearing their nightgowns. Clayface says, "Maybe the director was right. Maybe I am best suited as the villain. But I will give you two ladies one last chance. Will either of you go out with me?" Summer starts to cry in fear while Yvonne says, "As if I would ever want to be with somebody like you, you clay-faced clod." Clayface sighs and says, "My powers may have run out, but I still have the toys to eradicate the three of you." He pulls out a sword, wondering who he should off first, with a smile on his disfigured face. Batman jumps in through the window, kicking Clayface in the chest. Clayface says, "Batman, you had the advantage before, but now, thanks to this formula, I will become all-powerful." He drinks the formula, letting his legs transform into a form similar to Sandman from Spider-Man when he goes to fight. He throws an extra sword to the ground with a wicked cackle and says, "Are you ready, detective?" Batman picks up the sword and gives Clayface one of his signature Dark Knight glares. A sword fight between the two breaks out. Batman has the better speed, agility, and acrobatics, allowing him to get some good hits and doing some flips and almost knocking the sword out of Clayface's hand. Clayface gets tired of playing fair, so he creates a second sword with his free hand, making it harder for Batman to even move without getting sliced. Clayface forms his free hand into a hammer and smacks Batman, causing him to slide to the other side of the room. Montoya breaks free from her restraints and smacks Clayface over the head with a steel chair like it's WWE. This causes Clayface to feel rage, and he grabs Montoya by the throat and starts to choke her. Batman gets up and throws one of his freeze grenades at Clayface's arm, stopping him from choking Montoya. Batman grabs a sword off the ground, slicing Clayface's arm off, saving Montoya's life. Clayface turns to face Batman and roars like an animal. It seems that he's entirely lost his humanity. Batman and the more animalistic Clayface engage in a fierce battle, with several close calls on both sides, ultimately with Batman coming out on top, knocking Clayface out. Batman leaves Clayface for the police to take in, leaving Montoya even more curious about Batman than before. Summer instinctively hugs Yvonne, but Yvonne doesn't push her away. In fact, she smiles. The next scene shows a newspaper with the news of Clayface being missing from his jail cell. Scarface smirks as he looks at the newspaper and turns to look at what appears to be a very messed up version of Clayface contained in a tube. The ventriloquist anxiously says, "Mr. Scarface, why did we break him out of Arkham and not Mom?" Scarface laughs and says, "All will be revealed soon enough, dummy. Now, get me a hold of that killer Frost lady. I have special plans for her." Scarface laughs like a psycho as our episode comes to a close.